All right, this is just with my laptop's built-in webcam and mic, so I hope it's okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. All right,
All
let's
right.
just. We should be live in about 5, 4. Let's see. I'm not sure how aware you are. I have the world's worst $500 a month internet here.
Yeah,
Yeah, it barely works. All
mine's
right.
pretty.
So today we have on PB Henry 3. He has his own YouTube channel, and he is the one who figured out why the Razer laptops have motherboards that randomly fail. So I thought it would be cool to have him on to discuss this, since a lot of people have been asking me about it, and I said I don't know because I don't work on these machines. So let's see what he has to say. So let's wait to see if people show up in the chat, so I know this actually works. And it says we're online. Okay. So
Can everyone hear me?
yeah, let's see. Can everybody hear PB Henry? Let's see.
No sound.
Some people are trolls. I wait for somebody that's trustworthy. So MobiFix, can you hear us? Yeah. Okay, so he's loud. So let's see. Is there a way that I can lower you, or that you can lower yours?
I could try lowering mine.
Ah, it says we can hear us. We can hear you, but the screen is flickering. Oh, I have a dead GPU.
Oh,
Yeah. So is there a way that you can lower yours?
yep. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. Let me make mine mono. I have mine set to stereo. I'm such a noob. All right. Yeah.
Okay,
Be
is
back
this
in
any?
1 second, and we will be mono. One moment. Here we go. Okay, so now we should be set.
All right.
Okay, so which first of all, which Razer blade is it that you figured out has a problem where the motherboard just randomly fails? Which model was that?
Well, actually, it's like every model Razer, but the one I found the MOSFET's issue on was the Razer Blade 14 2014.
So the Razer Blade 2014. So what fails? What is that for? And what do you do to fix it?
Well, before we get into that, I just wanted to say for anyone who's considering buying a Razer, I would highly suggest you do a little bit of research on your own and look on the forums, and you will see that there's not just a particular issue Razer that's failing and having problems. There are problems across the board, literally, with the Razer Blade 14, the Razer Blade Stealth, and the Razer Blade Pro. In fact, I was just watching a video the other day on the newest Razer Blade Pro 2016, which kept getting recurrent blue screens,
Mm-hmm.
and usually just blue screens is usually something like a simple driver issue. But the weird thing about this was the blue screen error was related to the drives,
Mm-hmm.
and the Razer Blade Pro 2016 uses two PCI Express SSDs in a RAID 0 array. And what someone saw was that one of the drives was running significantly hotter than the other one, so it was thermal throttling way down. And as you know, in a RAID 0 array, you're limited by the speed of the slowest drive in the array. So the other one would have to lower its speed as well to compensate, and they were just speculating that that could be a possible cause for the blue screen errors.
Okay, so you're saying that they have two drives inside the machine, and one of those drives actually runs hotter than the other one to the point of throttling.
Yeah, and
Is
they're
it
speculating that was causing the blue screen since the one drive was throttling way down and the other would have to compensate for it in the RAID 0 setup that they're running.
Now, is this because of ventilation, or are they using two different model drives, or why is it that one drive is running hotter than the other?
I believe they're using Samsung 950 Pro NVMe drives in the Blade Pro 2016. I think it's just due to the placement of the drives on the board that made one run way hotter than the other one.
Okay, so what? Wow. So this isn't even an issue with the 2014. Even going forward, they have something with every single year.
Yeah, it seems so. And like I said, this is with the Pro 2016, which actually starts around $3,800, I believe.
Jesus. Okay.
So
Now with the one that the first thing that one got me to start looking at this was, I'm going to show it on a camera here in a second. Is I have a heatsink to one of the Razer blades here. This is like, $1,200, $1,500 machine, and as you
yeah,
can see, I can literally break this with my finger now. So let me just, yeah.
I here too.
Yeah, so I have a MacBook heatsink here. So this is a MacBook Air heatsink, by the way. This is, and people know what I think of MacBook hardware, by the way. I mean, I've shaved it down actually a little bit so that you could see the copper. And if I tap on it, I can't leave an indent with my fingernail. There's no way for me to leave an indent with a fingernail. Yet, with the Razer heatsink, you can see this is a clean surface. But if I take this and I just do this with my fingernail, I don't even have to push hard, but I can leave a clear crease and an indent in it. You
Hmm.
can literally, I mean, you can actually bend this thing almost entirely with your fingernail
Yeah.
and just leave dent after dent in it. It's like it's insane. I was just amazed at the sheer low quality of a lot of this stuff. And then I remember you had posted right after I got this thing that 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 you had solved the MOSFET issue that Razer themselves had not solved from your house, which is which is pretty cool. So could you tell me what it is you do to fix the Razer Blade 2014 and 15 that randomly fails because of the MOSFET? Because I've been getting a lot of questions on the stream, and I have no idea because I just never work on them.
Yeah, sure. The problem with the 2014 Blade 14, I'd say it's one of the most common problems because I'd say about 80% of the boards that I see have this issue. And it's with the MOSFETs. The main power MOSFETs for the AC is PQ1 on the board,
Mm-hmm.
and it is failing along with PQ2. And sometimes there are no signs of damage on the board. In fact, the first one I worked on that had this issue was just making a really loud, high-pitched whining noise,
Mm-hmm.
which I narrowed down to coming from those MOSFETs, which then it shortly blew up right in front of me shortly after that.
Wow.
Uh,
So what do you replace them with so that it works? Do you use the same one or do you use a different MOSFET?
nope, we are using a different MOSFET to fix this. And the thing is I tested these MOSFETs since they're obviously running really hot. I tested the max thermal dissipation limit of these MOSFETs when I saw a data sheet on them. And I saw that they're running pretty close to spec, and I found a compatible replacement MOSFET for these, which has something like a 2.2% higher max thermal dissipation limit. So just in theory, I was suggesting that maybe these new replacement ones I'm using would have a lesser chance of blowing up. Now, I didn't want to call it actually a solution because the controller could be involved or something else could be involved, which is causing, a substantial spike in them, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to say that it's probably a better suitable replacement than the ones that were originally on there.
Have you fixed any of these so far? About how many, if you have?
I fixed about 7 of them with the MOSFET issue. So,
How
and
many of them have come back so far with the same problem?
none have come back yet.
You have a
So,
better warranty rate than we do. All
yeah.
right, so now if somebody has a Razer with any one of these issues and they wanted you to fix them, how would they find you? Or do you offer this to the public, or is it just friends, family kind of thing?
I do. You could find me on my website. It is www.techworks, techworks, repair.com.
Okay, that's fine. Let me make sure techworksrepair.com. So yeah, I could see. So this is
Yep.
yeah. So this is you on the screen. So in Marshall, Minnesota.
Yep, that's correct. And
All
I
right,
do
this is
have
awesome.
a mail-in repair section on my website there.
Yeah, I just found it. This is cool. So if any of you have a Razer, if for all those people who've been asking me about this Razer MOSFET issue, you can send it here. So how long have you been doing this? Out of curiosity.
How long have I been working on the Razer boards or just in general?
Just electronics and this stuff in general. So I see you have a microscope and some soldering stuff behind you. So how'd you get started with that?
Oh, well, I got started, I guess, really just a few months ago. I got started in doing component level repair. So,
Okay, so we have a few questions in the chat. Not sure if you'll have answers to all these. So Paul Daniels says he's the one that always laughs when I destroy an SMC.
yep.
So take these questions with a grain of salt. He says, what's the original MOSFET model? What are you replacing them with? And is there a noticeable difference on the RDS on values?
The original MOSFET is AON 6508, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And the replacement, I could show you here in a second.
Sure.
Ah, there's no way I could read the lettering on this one. I have the replacement that I'm using actually in my newest YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the description. If you want to go read the description box in that, you could see which exactly which MOSFET I'm using to replace it with.
No worries. Okay. Let's find your YouTube channel just so that I can link that in case I forget to later. So it's PB Henry 3 on YouTube. You'll also see not only is he better at board repair than I am, but unlike me, he actually lifts. But what do we have here? So which video? So we have 530 deadlift and next to fixing razor blade that doesn't turn on. So yeah, you can be in shape and you can be in good shape and still do this, which is cool. So yeah, you have a video from 2 weeks ago on the razor blade MOSFET where you say, here we go. The part number you suggested was STL 105NS3LLH7. Uh,
Yep.
which is, so hopefully that answers your question, Paul. So let's see, what else is in chat here? So that about covers it. So for all the people who've been asking why do the Razers randomly fail, that is why. It would be great. It would be great if Razer would stop being Apple, and when they release something that is screwed up, actually wait less than 3 to 5 years to fix it for their customers. Again, with HP, Acer, all that like $300 stuff, we don't expect you to support it, but like above $1,000, it would be nice to get something other than the middle finger. And and what I really want to get across here is that the people who say that unauthorized repair is BS because they don't have access to the right this, that, and the other, and these things should not be fixed outside the manufacturer because you'll never find out what's actually wrong with it. It has to go back to the manufacturer so they could find the defects. Keep in mind, like the C7771 defects in the MacBook from 2008 and 9, that was figured out by a mechanic in the Netherlands in his garage. The 2010 GPU defects figured out by Duke, the same mechanic in his garage in the Netherlands. And the Razer Blade MOSFET issue was not figured out by the multi-million-dollar company. It was figured out by the independent technician that has his soldering setup next to his weightlifting setup. I mean, the point here is that people who say that independent repair cannot figure it out, when you have more people doing it, it's the same idea with open source. You'll get closer to actually coming up with long-term solutions to these problems. And when you have 50 to 100 people with multi-million-dollar resources are not going to beat millions and millions of people with $1,000 in resources. And people like Henry here are contributing to what makes repair great. So thank you very much for being on the stream. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with everybody. Is there anything else you want to say?
Yeah, actually, there's a few other things I could cover if we have time.
Yeah, sure.
Well, first I wanted to mention that Razer only offers a 1-year warranty, and they're quoting something like $700 for this particular repair. And what was interesting was that I actually got someone bring me a Razer that supposedly had the board replaced, so it was a refurbished board. And Razer did replace those same MOSFETs with the same MOSFET. So they're just using the original part, and they went bad again, and that's why the person brought them to me. And yeah, that's really all I have to say on that one.
Yeah, so give me 1 second since the stream is buffering ridiculously. Thanks to my crap internet. Okay, so you said that Razer is using the exact same MOSFET that was originally there, and they're charging how much for the fix?
Last I heard, it was somewhere around $700. I don't want to say a specific price. That's just what I heard. So.
All right, so yeah, I just cut my bit rate in half because of Time Warner. It's interesting. I have a 20 megabit connection right now, and if I use anything over 8 megabit, it just crashes. But I should know better. So you said it's about $700, and they use the exact same MOSFET.
Yeah, that is correct.
And what are you charging for the Razer repair at the moment? If you don't want to say because you want to raise it later, that's totally fine.
Well, I was charging $275 for my standard board repair.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, so that's about less than half the price and less likelihood of it occurring again. So.
Yep.
So let's see what's in chat. What else did you have to say? If you had anything else before I go to chat and see what people's questions are.
Sure. I also wanted to mention I just got one in today. Actually, it was completely dead, and it was a 2014 blade.
Uh-huh.
And the problem isn't the MOSFETs. I didn't really get a chance to diagnose it yet, but just from my time working on them, I found out where the various voltage rails were,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw it was missing the 3.3 volt rail. So I'm not exactly sure what's wrong with this one yet, but I did notice some resistors that were bad next to the power IC chip. So if I get this board working, I'd like to also make a video on that one.
Now most of the failures that you get, are they just spontaneous electronic failures, or are they or liquid as well?
I haven't seen very many liquid damage, honestly.
So people who own Razers are usually more careful with
Well,
their
the thing
products.
is, too, that I'd like to show is because I actually do have a board here, and the only way I could explain it is it looked like there was a rat's nest that was connecting, bridging a few resistors together. And I think of how this occurs is that if you uh, if you look at the way Razer has their keyboard set up,
Uh huh.
like I don't know if you could see this on video here because it's not very good quality,
Yeah.
but you can see light through this keyboard.
Uh
See?
huh. I see.
Oh, if you know how people love to eat over their laptops or
Oh yeah.
whatever. So whether it's hair or dirt or food or whatever, that could fall down right in between these keys and easily end up on the board. And I think that's how a lot of these boards end up looking really disgusting.
Yeah. I've always said, like, have your laptop over here and your food over here, so that the food is not traveling over the laptop. If you have the food here and the laptop here, then because I eat in front of my laptop all the time, and it's totally clean because I have food, laptop. So the food never travels over the laptop. So,
Yeah, but they could easily fix that if they just wouldn't allow that gap there between the keys and the board. Like you shouldn't be able to see the board by looking through the keyboard, you know? I mean, other manufacturers have already figured this out, you know?
okay. So let's see if there's anything in chat or if everybody left from my terrible internet connection. Let's see.
I also have a couple other points to bring up.
Sure.
I did have a board in that I was working on. It was also a Razer Blade 14 2014. And a common problem with these ones seem to be keyboard lights up, but no image on the screen. Fans will spin for something like a few seconds, and then they'll stop, and it will just be in a big boot loop. And what I found was that there was no clock output on the VBIOS chip,
Mm-hmm.
which was very interesting. First of all, for these laptops with the Kepler generation GPUs, they have a VBIOS which is separate from the main system BIOS. So sometimes they have their own dedicated ROM chip for the VBIOS. And that's the one I was looking on, which you could actually see is directly underneath the heatsink. It's labeled WinBond. And anyway, I had no clock output on this chip. And I've never seen that before, but I did end up replacing the chip, and then it turned on. So something was failing in that WinBond chip. I can't explain what, but I just thought that was interesting because I've never heard of one of those chips failing before.
Yeah, 99% of the time, I've had on these board repair forums, you have people talking about the KBC or the BIOS chip on PCs, and then but on Macs they don't fail unless you drop Coca-Cola on it. I've always found that kind of interesting. A lot of the times it is just a BIOS issue on PCs or some type of KBC issue. So, what were
Actually,
your other? Go for
I
it.
had one of your subscribers send me an email actually, and I thought it was interesting what he noted because there are also two other ROM chips that are directly to the right of the PCH.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to test these with my BIOS programmer and test clips to see exactly what each one contained, but I kind of figured it out just by looking at the data sheets. The first one next to the PCH, which is the larger ROM chip, can contain 4 megabytes, so I know that it was the BIOS file because the BIOS file is exactly 4 megabytes. And then the one next to that can only hold like 125 kilobytes, so the only thing that could be is like EC firmware.
Yeah.
But what your subscriber noticed was that neither of these chips had clock input, which I found was very interesting. We know that clock input is controlled by the Super I/O controller on the back of the board, which gives it the signal for clock input. But he did say that he did quite a bit of soldering and messing around with it, and he couldn't remember what he did for it to actually get clock input back. But I just thought that was interesting because I also noticed that Razer does not provide any BIOS files or EC firmware on their site anymore. They've completely taken that off their site.
Surprise,
And
surprise.
I've never heard of any manufacturer doing that before, and I thought it was a little suspicious and wanted to have your thoughts on that.
Apple. No. I haven't heard of PC manufacturers doing that. Honestly, I've only heard of Apple, because obviously Apple doesn't provide SPI ROMs for anything. I haven't heard of PC. I honestly haven't heard of PC manufacturers doing that before. But it's just interesting how some of these companies, like, they'll copy the negative traits of Apple without copying the positive ones. Like they copy the lack of durability, the lack of support, or the lack of transparency with software and hardware, but they won't copy the $400 billion in the bank part. Like that's just kind of sad. So
Yeah.
you're saying that I'm sorry if I just spaced out for a sec. You're saying the BIOS chip is actually very close to the heatsink?
The VBIOS is actually located underneath the heatsink. So, uh, I mean, I was speculating one reason that that chip might have failed was due to the extreme heat that these put out. Because I looked on the data sheet and it can only handle 85 Celsius max.
Why? Why the fuck would you put that right under the heatsink?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't.
God, it's like the people that get fired from Apple go to work for Razer.
Yeah.
Even they haven't done that. Even they haven't done that. It's like heatsink here, BIOS chip here, like, and every one of these boards, it's like heatsink here, BIOS chip opposite side, like opposite. Why? Oh
Yeah.
my God. Paul Daniels is in the. He says, "I'm crying. I'm crying, man. I'm going to compare to see what they. Chris Long, not a great place to put a BIOS chip under the heatsink. Yeah, so they caught it before I did, but like that was right in the back of my head. That didn't even register at first. I was just, oh man, that is
Yep.
that is bad. Ah. Well, do you have any other points to bring up?
I can't remember any off the top of my head right now, but
Yeah. So I guess
I think we covered it a bit.
So that's about it for today. So if you have a Razer with any one of these issues, Brendan Henry is very, very good at fixing them. His website's going to be listed below, and I just want to say thank you very much for coming on and sharing your knowledge with everybody.
Oh no, I really appreciate you having me on the live stream.
All right, so that's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. Like, one moment while you were saying something, I just had like 2,000 dropped frames because of crappy internet. That's why I
Oh,
didn't have video going to you, because I was afraid of uploading to two places at once with this terrible internet. I'm gonna edit out the beginning of it where like it wasn't working for 2 minutes, and just so and let me just make sure I got your website and the YouTube page right for the so I have TechWorks Repair, and then I have the and your YouTube link over here. So
yep.
check. All right. So yeah, thanks a lot for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
All right.
So,
Yeah, it's good. All right, talk to you later.
bye.
Oh, I am still streaming. Ah, it's a good thing I didn't say anything terrible about anybody. I mean, fuck the fans. They're all pieces of. Oh, crap. I'm still streaming. Yep. I got some editing to do. It's not like you guys aren't used to me fucking everything up, though. Oh, well.